Greetings, visitors to the paper prison. It is I, your host, the comics prisoner, sentenced for my crimes against comics illustration to be forever imprisoned within beautiful pieces of comic art. And today we have a visitor to the comics prison, or the paper prison, who has brought his own cell for me, a beautiful picture from the Mighty Thor, drawn by the legendary John Buscema and inked by the incredibly talented Joe Sinnott, who passed this week. I'd like everyone to welcome a commercial, we used to call commercial artists back in my day, I don't know what they call them now, former artist on the Starlog magazine, as well as other things, and also one of the first students in what we like to call the John Buscema School of Art, but it was really the comic art workshop. Here we go, Mr. George Koechell. Hey, welcome, Joe.
How are you today?
Great. Hey, thanks for coming by. I mean,
how are things in the paper prison today?
Well, it's solitary is always difficult. I'm so glad you've come because you've broken the monotony of the solitary, even and brought a wonderful page to be trapped within. So, hey, thanks for coming by. I've known you over the years, but intermittently we've worked at the same places a couple times, and we have mutual friends that hear about you, and I've seen your work and it's great. So, but I got to tell you, when I was 13 years old, I saw that ad for, you want to learn how to draw comics from John Buscema? And I sent it in. I got the postcard back, and I was a dirt poor kid living in North Carolina at 13. I looked at my parents and said, "I'm not going to this, am I?" So, but I believe you went. Any stories you'd like to share?
Well, I had that. It was the end of the summer. I was working as a character artist at Hershey Park, and I saw that same ad that you did, but I had a little bit of money in the bank, so I made a phone call, and Mr. Buscema picked up and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, this class is full. That's like next week, kid, and everybody else is portfolioed in." And I said, "Well, I have a $800 money order with your name on it." And he said, "Well, come on up. It's at 7 o'clock. Come on up to the Commodore Hotel." So I kind of naively packed whatever drawings I had and like a toothbrush and the bus, and showed up with a suitcase and this huge portfolio, art supplies, all this stuff, walked into the hotel room that night. So I was very lucky to get it. And not everybody appreciated the fact that I was juried in there at the last second.
We used to say, fortune favors the bold. And these days the kids say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And it's like you took a shot, you got in there. That's great.
Yeah. There were a lot of serious artists in that class. Bruce Patterson had already been inking. Bob Hall, who later became an art director at Charlton or DC. Yeah, Juan Ortez was in that class. Rick Rangel, a whole bunch of guys. There were 28 of us, or 29 by the time I showed up.
Yeah, the big names, of course, I remember is Bob Hall. They gave him a break drawing Champions, and he went on to do lots of different things. And I think Larry Maudstedt, maybe in the second class, maybe didn't see him. He became an inker. Larry Maudstedt, Mahlsted.
I just can't remember everybody.
He got well known for inking Keith Giffen over Legion. When they had that great run. Bob Downs did a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but so you brought I got to tell you, just one last question on that. Was it a nice room? Was it ratty?
It's a regular. It wasn't even a nice convention style. It was like a regular event room with banquet chairs facing the front, and Buscema would have a big. He had an easel, and he would do chalk talks because he always mentioned how he liked how Kniff was able to do these chalk talks. So he had these 18 by 24 pads at the front of the room, desk or something. And he would just stand at the front and block out anatomy and relate it all to Raymond and Bridgman and all these different illustrators as we went.
Well, you have to understand, I'm incredibly envious. And you were like 17 when you did this?
I know I didn't appreciate where I was at all. Kind of drifted through that a little bit because I was a country boy too, and it was like it's a super shock to be right in the middle of New York. If you want a sense of the Commodore Hotel, you should rewatch The French Connection because they run through the lobby and through the shops and everything underneath it. It's like a little reminder of what it was like in the 70s.
Right. You said you didn't do the entire class, but was he taking like payment installments? Or?
Oh, yes, he certainly did. Rick Rangel had gotten a scholarship through his local school or Rotary Club,
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, it was
the one and only Comic Art Workshop scholarship. That's gotta be must be a first.
Dave Simon was in there too.
Yeah, he passed away a couple of years ago. I met him. He
was the one guy. If you met him in the next 5 minutes, you were his best friend. Yeah. He said, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm out here in the middle of Pennsylvania." "Oh, well, come on drinking." So we went out and we did Boilermakers and all this stuff. It was a fun evening.
Next thing you know, you were working for him, making backgrounds or something.
Yes, that's the sad part because when I remembered Dave, I said, "Oh, I'm going to ask him if I can do some work with him," and he passed away last year. That's a sad thing. So that happens.
So this is another wonderful piece that you have here. You own this page?
Yeah.
That we're trapped in right now?
Not quite sure where the original is. This is a scan from when I found it last time before I had to move. I packed up. But it must have been a week or two before Christmas, and Big John walks in. He's got a big stack of original art. And I'm in about the third row. Starts in the first row, and there are 8 guys in the first row. Starts handing out page, and everybody's going, ooh, ah. And the first 2 rows, everybody's going, ooh, ah. And then he gets to this page. He goes, oh, splash page. What's that doing in here? Where am I only supposed to have story pages in this? And he already had picked it up and handed it to me. And I'm like holding it. And then he goes, just a minute, let me look at that. And I hand it back, and oh, look at these Sinnott inks. Oh, I could get $50 for this at a convention. I don't know, kid. And he flips the next page, and the next page is all chopped up and pasted up. And he starts to pull that page out, and he said, there, Bob or Juan will appreciate this production work. And he handed it over to Bob. And then, that's right. This should have been Bob Hall's page at the end of the row, and Bob didn't get one. And John said, well, just a minute. And he stepped back and handed this page. So he went under Bob's, under the page we're going to look at, handed the correction page to Bob. And Bob was like, oh, this is nice. And then he held up the page, and everybody saw it was a splash page. And they're like, what? And then he goes about, he says the thing about, I can get $50 for this at the con. And he kept flipping through, and he got to the bottom of the stack, and he goes, and he hands it to me. Well, what the hell, kid? Merry Christmas.
Again.
And everybody in the room was like, ugh. And like Bruce was in the back, like, hey, I'll give you $100 for that. And then he went through the rest of the room, and everybody was like, oh, we got these story pages, or monground. And then Bob was like, hey, I got this page, but I could add that one. Hey, we should trade. I said, no, I got it.
Well, even though it was sold back then, I don't think the original art was as valued as it is, especially today. They were all just like giving it away to each other as gifts, weren't they? The opportunity to
Yeah, it
do
was
this.
like, well, see, he said, oh, I just had this stack I got back from Marvel, and he's handing them out like candy. They were just like interior pages, but then, of course, he said he could make a little extra money at $50 a page, and that's what the Marvel rate was at the time. If you do your layout and your inking and you send everything in, oh, you can make $50 a page. Marvel Comics. And again, he was knocking out 5 or 6 breakdowns or layouts a day. So
and back then in the 70s, $50 was still a lot of money. I mean, maybe not as much as in New York, but in the rest of the country, yes.
Yeah.
You could do a lot with $50.
Yeah, that's true.
That was a full day's pay.
Yeah, that was true.
Yeah. So you went on, and what was your next adventures in commercial art world, as we called it back then?
Well, we took the break for Christmas. I found out I didn't have any money, so I had to go back and do the caricature roadshow and travel the country a little bit, auto and boat shows, doing that stuff. I contributed to a lot of fanzines at that time too. Not comics, but I looked at the science fiction, a lot of science fiction fanzines, like Science Fiction Review. I had bought that book, Cartooning by the College Professor. There was a little book, How to Be a Cartoonist. I read that from the first page to the back and said, now you want to be a cartoonist? Here's the bibliography. Just put your portfolio together and mail to these places, and there's a big long list of publications. And I did that, and I just checked off every one. And I actually got into the buyer's guide for the first time that way. And I started to get into the fanzines. So I did that. And
you got a little something in Starlog, I hear.
Yeah, the next thing was science fiction conventions. So I was working for Starlog, so I started to do conventions. And I did Baldacon one year, and Mark Wheatley and Mark Hempel were hanging art right like next to me, and Wheatley looked over and said, hey, come on up to Insight. We need more colorists. So you have a good color sense. Come on up. And so I had that opportunity. Worked there for a few years, and by that time, my buddy Dave McDonnell, who had also been in the buyer's guide, had already worked for Stranko at Media Scene, and then he moved up, got hired as managing or assistant editor at Starlog, and suddenly I got cartoon assignments in the mail.
Excellent.
And that just kept happening, and it was like, oh my gosh, I can pay my rent with this. I can work for 4 hours a week and pay my rent for the month, and went on for 10 years, and that was great. I got to draw a lot of movie monsters. In the days before, in the days before the internet, I would have to go to the late night theater with a flashlight and a sketchbook and like watch RoboCop or something, try to figure out what to draw out of the film.
Yeah, I always wondered how Mort Drucker and the types did it. I get the feeling they had a special in. They probably got them advanced materials, when they had to do their movie adaptations.
Well, I have a Buscema story about that too, because he had done The Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
And everybody said, wow, you must have look how accurate. We were looking at his panel compositions, and everybody was saying, well, you must have had all the movie stills to work from. And he goes, oh, no, I just, I had some, but I've seen the movie so many times, I just knocked it out.
He was amazing that way, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had a very visual memory. And I got to tell this other story now that I remember it, because he was talking about his different influences, and he was constructing the body, and something about the way he drew it bothered him. And then he said, well, Alex Raymond would do it like this. And he turned and he put his pen against the paper and he looked over his shoulder and he goes, well, I'm not Alex Raymond. And he had this little moment where he just kind of like looked at his pencil. Well, I'll try it anyway. So this is not Alex Raymond, but this is me drawing what I remember from Alex Raymond. So he had that little moment where he was thinking about one of his mentors. That I always thought that was an interesting story.
He seemed like a really great guy. He seemed like a great teacher to have for this.
Yeah.
Or maybe he wasn't a great teacher, but you got to watch him draw.
You got to watch him draw, and he had this, charisma, and he's engaging. You were included in the conversation. The one piece of homework I turned in was a splash page, and he had gone around the room already, and he picked mine up, and he had fantastic things to say about everybody. And mine was, you could tell I'd done it overnight, and it wasn't even really finished. And he kind of like looked, and he looked, and he looked, and he goes, look at the negative space on this page. Well, it wasn't what I had drawn, but what I had not drawn.
That is nice.
I caught his attention, but he had to really, the fact that he dug so deep to give me a compliment, I always thought that was a funny thing.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, and all that aside, I had done that class, and years later, had the opportunity to teach. And I said, well, of course, I know how to teach. I was in Buscema's class. So I was just, I just have to be John Buscema for kids. So I remember I get to still talk about the class and how different people learn things, how visual learners learn, that type of thing.
I was about to say, the world of art has changed mightily since we were young. And I guess you've had to lateral off to more, computer assist and that world. And I've always enjoyed animation. I'm glad you were able to you're able to work in it in some way. And that's what you're doing now, right?
The digital, the migration to digital is what killed my Starlog outlet. I was the last artist to have a physical piece of artwork that they had to run around town to get photographs and negatives made of, and they had a lot of pressure on me to move to the computer, but I didn't have quite have the money at the time. And then my last piece was, I thought I would do this amazing thing, and I did it all in gold leaf as an ancient manuscript. And gold leaf doesn't reproduce under the camera. And one of the last drawing I got in there, it all came out black. And I can't imagine how they got through the production process, but the next day I got a call and said, Norman doesn't want you to work with us anymore. So it's not my fault.
Yeah.
In a way it was, but that's what ended Starlog pretty abruptly for me. The digital transition. So since then, yes, I have. And the thing that unlocked it was when Flash was, the animation, it was Macromedia Flash at the time when that came out. And I opened that up and I saw layers and I saw timeline. And I instantly related it to Photoshop. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I had those two things, I got to teach kids how to do this on the computer so they get way ahead. And that got me out in the community and got me teaching.
Well, that sounds like an incredible career. Well, I really thank you for visiting me in my solitary here in the paper prison. I hope you'll come back again. It's been great, and I've always, and I would say I hope we could work together again like we did, but that'd be a step back for you back in the old days.
Not at all. Not at all.
But I've seen your work. I work with you. You're great. And so tell me, where can the people find you if they want to know more about what you're doing?
That's one of those other transition stories. I have never actually built my own web page. So I just have regular old email. I'm at gkoechell@yahoo.com.
All right. Well, you know what? I'll put that in the video description so people don't have to do any transcribing. So now we come to the warden's telling me the visiting hours is coming to a close. As I like to say here, if you like what you've seen, feel free to like, subscribe, smash the bell. I'm trying to build a little community here, and I hope we can all be fans together and do things together. And I hope we can continue this conversation in the comments below. So once again, thank you, George. And as I like to say at the end here, 4 walls do not a prison make, but comics can be a very cool prison. All right, bye-bye. See ya. Be well.